Hello again. Good morning. I trust your night was fine. It's morning over here. So, welcome to this Photoshop Basics tutorial class. And today we're talking about tools and its functions. Tools and its functions. Okay, I think this is your next level. Since the last class, we've talked about layers, and of course, if you don't understand some things there, please make sure you are in my Telegram masterclass free version group so that you can ask your questions and then I can answer. Alright, you're also allowed to ask random questions, so notwithstanding, you can just join the group however. Okay, but today we're talking about tools and its functions, and there are really pretty many tools in Photoshop, but we're going to go over a few, and we're going to make this particular tools class perhaps 2 or 3 classes, because we want to talk about more tools than we have here. Today we're just going to be talking about 6 tools, okay, and while we're talking about that, we'll be talking about their functions, so that's why it's going to take a whole lot of time. I don't want to come back to its functions again, so we'll talk about the tools, we'll talk about its function, how it's being used, some things around it. We may not finish it, but during the course of usage we'll get to harness more of these particular tools or its functions. Alright, so very quick one. The first one is the move to, okay, and I think I should put their shortcuts in their front so that just so you see them. I hope you can see my screen. Sorry for the last class video, I didn't notice my camera froze. I'll be more careful next time. Okay, the Artboard tool is originally V, okay, but I changed mine to A, so let me put A there. Okay, sorry, that's supposed to be 2, and the rectangle Marquee tool is M. Same with the elliptical. Then the lasso is L. Same with the polygonal. Okay, for these ones I have similar shortcut. I had explained in previous classes that to use this shortcut, all you just got to do is, once you selected L the first time, you hold on shift and press L for the next 2 underneath it. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the move tool now. The move tool is just simple. It's just used to move objects around, okay, just as this is a whole object. If you remember in the last class, we treated layers, so we're having 2 text layers here already. Hope you understand what that means. Let me see, let me increase my thumb size. Okay, I think since we're just having 2, I'll just have it so very big. Okay, alright, we can manage it this way, so we know that this is a text layer and this is a text layer. Alright, so the move tool is used to move objects around, just all around. But you see, sometimes you might want to pick up an object in Photoshop and they have very much, like the objects are very much, and when you try to select one particular one, it's proving very difficult. I think I should show you an example very quickly. Let me see if I have a job, and a finished job here. Okay, let's take this now. Okay, over here now you see there are many objects around this particular work. Okay, and if you look, you would notice that each letter here is a layer. G is a layer, E is a layer, C is a layer, A is a layer, R is a layer. Don't mind the way they are arranged on the layer. That does not determine how they are spelt either. It's just random, could be random in the layers, but meaningful on the canvas. Okay, so you have lens all around. Let me switch it off and switch it on so you see what it's doing. Switch it off, switch it on. Maybe I should just group the two layers. Remember, Ctrl G to group layers and call it lens. Rename. We've gone through this, so please, if you're not familiar with what I'm doing right now, please make sure you have gone through the previous classes. So I'm trying to explain move now, and let's say I bring this lens up above the whole grace thing, okay, so that it add effect. You can see it adds its own effect to the grace. And so if I try to move the G, I end up moving the lens. You see the problem? I end up moving the lens. So there's a problem there, and there's a way to come around it. Even if you are with a move to, and you just got to be with the move to, okay, hard to try it, but it's not functioning well. So what we do, there's what we call the transform mode. Okay, first of all, remember in one of the classes I talked about having this checked. Whenever you're on your move to, have it checked. It says show transform controls, but that's not the transform mode we are talking about. But just so that you know what you've selected every time you select it on the layer. This is E, and it's showing here that this is E, this is C, and this is C here. It's showing because this is on. If this is not checked, you will not be able to see anything. Select E and it's not showing, so it has to be checked. So make sure you go over that. So if I were to move this G, but this lens is above it, there are two ways around it. I could pick up this lens and lock it. Remember the lock icon, which is also control question mark on the keyboard, where you have your question mark on the keyboard and backslash. Yeah, that's backslash. Yes, that's backslash. I'm correct. And backslash, you just press it. Actually, the shortcut is control question mark. So you just lock it and the layer is locked. Now, if you go and move the G to move, but sometimes Photoshop has some errors. I've noticed it, but I cannot tell you when and where it will happen. Okay, I've noticed that sometimes even when a layer is locked and you're trying to move an object, Photoshop ends up moving the locked layer that is not supposed to be moved. I've noticed it in a series of times. I think it's just for Photoshop to fix that. Alright, so but for this particular example, it worked anyway. But there is another way, and which is the transform mode. The transform mode is the mode I want to introduce you to. How does it work? You just need to press Ctrl T and you enter that mode. Okay, here you have the transform controls, sometimes larger, sometimes the size of the object. However it is, what you notice more is the X. Okay, sometimes you must have seen me import something and it comes in as transform mode. Okay, and its functions here, look at the functions here. You have something like, it tells you at the end of this place, commit transform, which is pressing enter key, or cancel the transform, meaning if you have made some stretch and you want to commit it or cancel it, you can just cancel it and it goes back to the way it was, which is also the same thing as pressing escape. Okay, let's go back to the transform mode now. And if I decide to stretch the G, okay, I can click on the commit transform and it will commit it, which is the same thing as pressing enter key. Any of the enter keys, okay. In a previous class, I tried to show us the two different enter keys that functions differently for the text too, okay. But here, any enter key functions for this. And if you want to undo the changes, you don't need to go into transform mode to undo the changes. You can just press Ctrl Z and you're back to the changes. Okay, so let's assume we like what we see right now. Let's go over it again. I feel somebody didn't get it, so let's go over it again. Said to enter into the transform mode, press Ctrl T and you are in the transform mode. In this transform mode, you will notice all of its function, including the sizes. Okay, positioning is one thing, X and Y axis, but we don't look into that. Then the width and height, okay, is another thing. And I remember telling us about this lock icon that it should always be locked. This helps you when you are dragging, it is dragging equally, that all sides are equally dragging or increasing in size. All sides are increasing equally, because this is telling us that the width and height are locked together, so that any part of it you drag, it drags together. Okay, so that's it. All right, so then the next one is rotation. It has the ability to rotate. So if I put a 45-degree there, it can rotate at this point. And you see, I've not committed any transform yet. Okay, although this can be reached through the property menu. This is a property menu, but right now, because we're in the transform mode, the property menu is not active. Okay, so we are using the transform mode. So sometimes you could want to do transform like this. Okay, then one more thing is that while you're in the transform mode, you can come at the edges of that particular object, not at the object. Now if you come close to the object, you have the mouse icon change to this, but when you go out a bit, you have the mouse icon change to something that tells you that you can rotate it. And when you click and hold, you can see the degree showing you that you are rotating. Okay, and it's also functioning at the top there. Sorry, I'm trying to use my hand to point at the camera at the same time. Very funny. All right, so you can rotate and you see the figures change at the tools properties there. I hope you can see that it's changing. Okay, then you can also hold and shift and have it move in 15 degrees. You can see it's moving in 15 degrees. Okay, let me do it. It will just move like that in 15 degrees, and I'm back to 0. Okay, so that's because shift is held down. Okay, if in all of these I don't like these changes I've just made, I can just press escape and we're back to how it was before. So that's how the transform mode works. With the move to, that is when this is very, very easy to use. Okay, I will always warn that when you are using any other tool apart from the move tool, as soon as you're done from that tool, or with that tool rather, go back to your move tool just by pressing V. Okay, in CorelDRAW you just press your space bar. In AI you press V2. In AE you press V2. So V is just like Adobe functions for going back to your move tool. And CorelDRAW is called pick tool, so you pick, not move, but it functions like a move tool too. So that's just the move tool function. So I just hope this is clear right now. Okay, so let's go back to the place where we are right now. Okay, so the next tool is the Artboard tool. Okay, I think I need to say one more thing. One more thing is this: we have some controls whenever the move tool is selected that will not show if the move tool is not selected. Take note. There are some functions that will be active only when the move tool is selected and will not show if the move tool is not selected. Let's go back to our previous examples. Like for instance now, this is the move tool selected, and let's say I select 2 objects now. Then you can see these icons being active. Okay, let me select 3 objects now. Let's say I scatter this here so that you see how this will function very well. Okay, it's not well arranged now, so let's say this comes down a bit, this goes up, and this comes down. Okay, all right, this I didn't go into transform mode because my lens, even though it's above it, it's locked. So the G part, let's say for instance now, I select all these tools and I want to bring them all back on the same line and maybe very close together. Okay, these tools can help me, but if I were using another tools like the brush tool, you see it has changed. So even though I have selected them on the layer panel, that they are all selected, but I don't have that function there any longer. So I have to go back to my move tool and I press V on the keyboard, and that function on that property is active. Now how does this function? Okay, let's start from the first two. The first one here. Okay, let's say I select the G and the R, and I want to bring the R right at the left side. It's and I click on it. You see what happens? So it means the G and the R comes together and they are on the left side. So it's called alignment. They are aligned on the left side. So this alignment functions will only be active when the move tool is selected. Okay, let's undo that. Let's say I want to bring 3 objects to a midpoint and I select the third one. So you see A, G and R, they are at a midpoint. So that's how that will function. Let's undo that. Okay, so I want to bring them to a right point and that's how they function. So let's undo that. And the next one is the distribution. Okay, but this distribution is on a vertical axis. Let's say I want okay, let me take this down a bit and let's bring it first to the center so that we can see how it is to the center. And you see A and G are close but not as close as R, so there's a big distance. Let's say we want to make the distance between R and G and A and G to be equal, the distance there. Okay, so that's when this functions well because it's vertical. So we'll click on it and you see it's equal there and it's equal there. It's just calculated, so you don't even if you use your eyeball to look at it, you may not see it so equal, but Photoshop has calculated it based on its parameters. All right, so let's undo that and undo that again. Okay, so the next one is the top. Okay, just like the left and right, if you click that, everything goes to the top. Okay, let's undo that. And the other one is the vertical center. Vertical center is when they all come to a midpoint. Okay, let's undo that. Then the next one is the bottom, where all of them goes to the bottom. Okay, let's undo that. Then the next one here is the horizontal distribution. And horizontal distribution, for us to achieve that, let's first of all go for a vertical center, and you can see that R and A are closer, but not as close as G and R. So if we just click that, the same thing it did in the vertical. So let's undo that twice and that's it. Okay, so this is the functions of all these tools, and let me see if I can undo. Okay, at this point now, so this is just the function of it. So if I select all these tools like I previously selected, G to the end of it, and just click on the horizontal distribution because they are horizontally arranged now. Okay, you will notice that they are evenly distributed, and we can put them at the top if we want to make them all equal, and they are all equal, and you just see it. If you want it closer, all you could do is what this wants is the first and the last. That's what it wants, the first and the last. Like if I want it a little bit tighter, okay, I don't have to be accurate, but I can bring this so close and say, okay, distribute from here. What Photoshop does is the first letter and the last letter will remain in their position, but all the other letters, the first letter G and the last letter A, but all the other letters R, A, C, will have to shift and kind of manage the space in between. So when I distribute horizontally, you see R comes, A adjusts, C adjusts, but E and G are stationary, right? So that's something you should note. So these tools are functional only with the move tool. Okay, so these are the functions of the move tool. Okay, all right, so that is that. So let's go back to it now. Now the next tool is the Artboard tool. The Artboard tool. Okay, the Artboard tool here is A for me, but it's originally V. Okay, I said why I had to use A in the previous classes because I don't like whenever I press V and maybe I got to press it like maybe Shift V or something. I don't want it to change, and sometimes it's usually change on its own. I don't know why it does that. Like it chooses Artboard instead of Move To. So I disliked it in previous Photoshop versions. I don't know if they fixed it, but I think I prefer A now. Okay, so in this Move To, in this Artboard tool, I showed how we could use it. Let me just press A now. I showed how we could use it in previous classes. Simply, if the Artboard tool is selected and you select the Artboard name written over here, if you select it, you have this plus icon coming in, and then you can add more artboards. Okay, if there was no artboard that was created, and this can be created if you right click new document, and when you're creating you checked artboard. So but if you didn't check it, maybe you didn't check it, what you could do is you could make sure there's no layer locked. We're going to try this now with this layer locked. The lens layer is locked, and my way is locked. But we're going to try this. The background layer is locked. Let's group this and call it Grace, so we'll know that that's Grace. Alright, okay, let's select this, group it. Okay, it won't group because the background layer is locked. Let's unlock this. Let's just have the lens layer locked. Okay, so group this just to arrange our works very well. We'll call it BG. Then we'll call this adjustment ADJ. Okay, that's a cover adjustment. And see what it's doing. Yeah. Okay, so the lens layer is locked, but all of the layers are open. And whenever you want to use an artboard A, you must make sure there's no layer that is locked. Okay, you want to draw to make that that particular canvas an artboard because you want others to join. So you click and drag. Intentionally I left the lens so that we can see how it works. So just come over there, please. It will show when you are dragging to show some kind of red line. I'm not sure you can see mine. Then when I come to the end there, I release it. Well, see what happens. The lens layer left the artboard. That's one thing the lens will do. The lens layer leaves the artboard, and kind of, because I'm locked, so it means I'm not part of this group. That's what it's trying to function. So if we undo that and unlock it, because we want to make it part of the artboard, okay, then choose the artboard tool right now, and click and drag over it. You see, nothing happens, everything remains the same. Come on, where's the lens again? Uh-oh. Okay, let's select the move to and find the lens. It's still inside, but I don't know. Okay, it went to the bottom. Okay, let's send it back. Did we actually take it back to the top? I don't know. Alright, so now you can see how the artboard is created now. So if you select the artboard with the artboard tool, if you select with the artboard tool now, you select the artboard name there, you can press the plus icon and have more artboards created. Or sometimes, you know, when doing designs, you might like a particular design, but you have something in mind, so but you don't want to you don't want to destroy what you already started. So you like, I think I should increase this A, make this A coily, and do some things, funny things with these letters. But I don't want to, in case if I don't like it when I start, let me make this artboard too. So you can select the artboard from the layer panel there, just the artboard, not the folders or any other layers, just the artboard layer itself, and press Ctrl J. Ctrl J is for duplicate in Photoshop, and press Ctrl J. So the artboard duplicates itself, and everything inside the artboard is duplicated at the same time. Sometimes if the things are very heavy, Photoshop takes time to duplicate them, so it's like they are much, so it takes time to duplicate them and put them, but here it's not much, so you just move everything to the other side, and you have it as artboard 1, artboard 1. But if you want to be kind of careful, you need to rename them, or you know, arrange your works very well. So rename them like Grace Original. So you can name the other one Grace Duplicate. Okay, so that's, then you know which one you are working with. Then you can continue maybe trying out what you want to try on these ones, anything you want to do at all. Lock, control lock. Alright, so that's exactly what I wanted to do, so you know that there's a difference. Okay, so it will not I mean, they are not linked, so anything you do here is separate from whatever is happening here. So that's the artboard tool. Alright, sometimes is there any other thing I think I'm leaving? Let's go back to the artboard tool. Okay, alright, whenever artboards are created, there's something you should know. Let's go over and create a new document. An artboard is checked. Okay, let's forget about naming now and create artboard. Now it creates a layer, an empty layer. When you see a checkered board like this on Photoshop, it means it's empty layer, because if you really come to create new layer at the bottom here, okay, create new layer, it's also an empty layer. But what you see on the artboard is a white background. It's just the way Photoshop sets it by default. It's a white background, and it's preferable you leave it that way. If you have anything to do different from a white background, you can put it and change the background if you want, if you don't want a white background. But if it's a white background that you prefer, okay, there are two sides to this. When you are exporting this work, Photoshop will add the white background to it and export it. So if there was just probably a rectangle here, click and drag for a rectangle, you can see now that the rectangle is now in the layer I created, because I created a new layer. I mean, I drew, it took over that new layer. Okay, if I'm exporting this, Photoshop will export both the rectangle and the white background we are seeing. One, we assume since it's a checkerboard, what we're going to get is like a PNG file. Okay, like, by the way, PNG file is like a transparent file, where that helps you, like, you know, if you have a logo, you can just go and drop the logo and anything, and it does not come with background. It's all trimmed, it's just to the size of the logo. So you'll be shocked that this white background will be exported at the same time. But let's assume you really don't want the white background to export at the same time, okay? Or there are cases where when you create a new document and you don't check Artboard and create, and you have a background layer that is already telling you that it is white, okay? If you unlock that layer, you will see it as layer 0, so that even when you put a new layer, maybe create a rectangle just as we have in the other one, and it takes over that layer, and like that's the layer. If you don't want this layer, you can delete this layer, and you will have the real checkerboard that you have. Okay, so this is somehow deceptive. Here you have a checkerboard, but you don't really have a checkerboard here. And if we decide to delete this layer, because we already have a layer here, and delete this layer, you don't see a checkerboard, because you are working with Artboard. Okay, so because it's an artboard rather, it's an artboard, and boards come with white. Okay, I have a board in the house and it comes with white. So that's, I mean, it could be white, it could be black, but you know, you have white boards, you have black boards. So this is white, and this, when exporting, goes together. But the other example I showed us now, the other example here, when we're exporting this, if we're exporting it as a PNG, this checkerboard is already telling us that it will, although go like the frame size, but there is no, like, there's no background. There's not going to be a background. So we're going to have this rectangle like this. So that's for you to know. Okay, so that's something that I think is very, very important. But when we get to when we're exporting our jobs, we'll get to see the functions and we'll try them. So I hope that is clear. Let's go back to where we are. Okay, press F4. I think I should delete this Artboard. Delete. And so we have just you. Okay, so that's the Artboard. The next two is a rectangle Marquee 2. The rectangle Marquee 2. Well, name sounds funny, but if you ask me, this is under a topic called selection. Okay, when we're treating selection, it's like we may not have to do much, because if we have to learn it now and its functions, we are already learning the functions of selection. Okay, when it comes to selection, you really need something like maybe a picture. So we're going to open a picture. I'll just go to File, Open. Control O can also help with that. So let's go to where I have my pictures, pics. Okay, So let's say I select this picture and I click open. All right, so we have, since we have this picture, should I use objects now? Okay, let's just continue anyway. Okay, so we have these pictures, rectangle. I want to use a rectangle marquee 2, and that's a tool just here, rectangle marquee 2. Okay, I knew I was not going to use this picture when I just saw the example there. So let me look for a picture that we can use very well. Tools now. Forgive me, I think I'm choiceful now. Mood and reactions, offices. Okay, I think I found something. Alright, so yeah, I think I like this. So let's say we have a lot of objects around here now, and we want to select something squared. That's why it is rectangle. Okay, something squared, we want to select something squared, so that's why I didn't use that picture again. So you use the rectangle marquee to make a selection out of it. Okay, click and drag to make a selection. Just click and drag over it. Once you release your mouse, you have this line, something like it's blinking, and somehow I get to call it the imaginary line. Like, this line is not creating any layer, this line is just there, but some functions you're going to make on this line will take effect. Say for instance, if you press the delete button, did I just press the delete button? That's what it's supposed to do. Why is it doing this video? Wait, let me unlock this layer. First of all, let me deselect, okay, and duplicate this layer. Okay, so I go over it again. Okay, and I press delete, and somehow, yeah, the other layer was visible, so I made it invisible, and somehow it deletes. So what it's trying to tell us now is like that particular place is empty. The laptop is no longer there. Okay, let me hide it. Control H, the imaginary line. I hid it so that we'll just be looking at, and like, the laptop is gone. So the rectangle marquee 2 is like, we use it to make selections, and those selections we can make some functions within the confines of that selections. Do a lot of things just within the confines of that selection. Okay, but we have to look at its functions now. There are many things we can do with it. So let's bring our laptop back. Right, and unhide imaginary line. Okay, over here at the top here, the first thing we see there is a box just that says new selection, and if you select it, the other one is deselected. The next one says add to selection. If you select it, the new selection is selected. So it's just like, and the third one to subtract from selection, then intersect selection. Okay, intersect with selection. So these four, you cannot use the four at the same time. You have to use one at a time. So we are going to go over what the four does. For the first one, which is a rectangle, which is a new selection now, it creates a new selection. So every time I want a new selection, like I don't want the laptop again, I want the camera, so I create a new selection, and the old one is deselected, so the old one is not part of it. So it's just new selection. Once it's in that mode, whenever you create a new selection, the old selection is forgotten. Okay, while the next one is add to selection, and the add to selection is when you create a new selection, both the old and the new are together. You get, so they are together, and that's the subtract from selection, and that's the add to selection. And the next one is subtract from selection. That's like the opposite of what the add to selection does. But you must have something selected to make this function work. So first of all, if you want to subtract some sides like you know that that's all white space is not part of it. So I click and drag over it and it cuts it off again. So if I want to be careful, come a little bit close, I can actually zoom forward and perform this function. When you zoom forward, you can hold down your space key and it changes into the hand tool. Then you can pan, that's click and drag. Both your space bar key is held down, at the same time your mouse button, that's your left click is active, so I can move. Alright, so then let's put it in a position where I can use it. Once you release your space bar, you are back to the tool that you were previously using. Okay, so you see, because I'm with the subtraction tool, it subtracts. So there are other tools to make this straight so that you don't keep killing yourself. Like, okay, let me come a little bit closer, and you subtract, and you say let me come a bit. No, you don't have to do all that. There are other tools to make this much more better. Okay, but at this point, perhaps the best tool for this straight part is the rectangle marquee tool on the subtract selection mode. Alright, so that's how it functions. Why the intersect is like let's have something selected here, like the book selected, and I look closer. I said, oh, I think I just want to adjust the book. I don't want the book, the laptop, and I don't want the empty spaces around. I just want the book. So if I use the intersect selection and come to where the book is, only the book becomes selected. What does this do? If you remember, if you studied mathematics, and of course everyone studied mathematics, but like the sets, there's a topic called set where you have the Venn diagram. Okay, you have a circle, another circle, and when the two comes together, they tell you there's a midpoint, and it's called the intersect. So that intersect is where the two circles meet. Okay, so that's how this functions. If you have originally, okay, sorry, let me have the add selection. If I have this, and I have okay, and I select the intersection too, and I come and draw over this, the focus is on the intersect point. That's the focus, where it will not focus on the other side or the other side. So once I release this, I have not released it yet, so that's why you are still having it seeing the two. But once I release it, that's where the focus will be. So that's how that functions. So but I like to have it on the add tool. Why? When I make a selection like this and I want to remove some selection, I can hold on the Alt key and remove selection. Okay, when you hold on the Alt key, it changes into the subtract selection. But if you prefer to have it on the subtract selection, and let's deselect. By the way, to deselect is Ctrl D, or you can come to the selection and press and select deselect. When you make a selection, you can possibly hold on the shift key and it changes into add, and then you can add functions. You can add more selections. Okay, so that's how that functions. So that's how the tool functions. Alright, so I really think that this is going to be a very long topic, so I think we will have to stop here for today. We've really gone far. We have been able to talk about the move tool, the Artboard tool, and the rectangle marquee tool, and the video is as long as I wanted it. Then we'll continue from next class. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed, so that we can be able to get you notified whenever we have a new topic. Alright, until next time, I'm Osmond, and thank you very much for this class.